All right, welcome everyone. Great to have you here on today's episode. Since we have all four of you here, we will start with Igor and then Nodar and then Alex and then Eldari. Please give us a quick intro of yourself. So this is like an introduction of you and perhaps how you got into crypto and how you got into Web3 and general introduction as to what you do at DeFrag and all of that really, really cool stuff. So Igor, you can go first and then Nodar and then Alex and then Eldari.
Yeah, thank you. So I briefly mentioned an interesting story of my start or my foray into crypto in the board dev chat. Quickly repeat it for the listeners. I invested in Bitcoin very early, smart move. Got in at $700 or $800. I got 6.5 Bitcoins, except I bought them on Mount Gox. And after the crash, they were lost, gone forever. I was very sad, and it seemed like a tragic ending for my story. But at the peak of the previous bull market, when Bitcoin hit 65, 68,000, Fortress Financial reached out to me to buy out my claim to Mt. Gox, and they paid me 30 cents on the dollar. So losing the Bitcoin forced me to be the best hodler ever. And then I got 30 cents of the dollar at the peak of the bull run. So it was a sad story to begin with, and then ended up being a happy story at the end. So that's kind of one of my forays into crypto. Learned about it early on. Didn't quite jump in as a builder. That's where my good friend Nodar comes in, and I will let him do his own intro, not to take away from his light. But he has been a great builder in this space himself, and I've been watching him and speaking to him. And because of that, we came to work together, and I gravitated towards the industry because of him. And at DeFrag, I am the CEO and co-founder. Spend a lot of my time helping the rest of the team succeed at what they're best at. And the 30-40% of the rest of my time on a weekly basis is spent coding in the code base with our CTO, Alex, who will introduce himself as well. That's it for me. Thank you.
Nice intro, Igor, and thank you for the kind words. Definitely happy that I managed to kind of convince some of my really good friends, my best friends, to join the Web3 world with me. But yeah, myself, I originally got into crypto during the whole ICO boom with Ethereum. I just kind of spent my time kind of learning about new projects that were launching on Ethereum, and I've always tried to figure out where I could kind of fit in with my value proposition, so to speak. What should I build in the space? That's missing? And really couldn't figure it out. I just started doing DeFi tutorials. It was called literally just registered DeFiTutorials.com. And as new DeFi projects were launching, I would just do a tutorial about them. And that was kind of like a really low-hanging fruit. That's how I kind of built up a lot of my relationships with a lot of these early DeFi founders. And through that, I kind of got more and more feedback from listeners, from people who were just reading these tutorials, that they would like to use multiple of these DeFi protocols at once. And that's where kind of like Zaps came from. And one day we just decided to hack what's called DeFi Zap, which now turned into Zapper. And yeah, that's kind of like my story within DeFi. And then just about like a year and a half ago, like I've been in my DeFi hole, but started looking into NFTs about a year and a half ago, and noticed that there's a huge missing kind of void in the space, which is getting a loan against your NFT asset, using it as collateral. So that's where we set out to build DeFrag. I kind of did a lot of the initial design work for how we should set up our mechanisms. And yeah, I'm going to let Alex take over.
Hi, guys. My name is Alex. I am the CTO of DeFrag. I started off my journey in crypto in about 2017, when we were just investors, quote unquote, where we just seen numbers go up and up and up, and everyone was really good investor. But the fun part for me actually started when everything started crashing, right? After you started losing all the money, that's when you realized nobody is as clever of an investor as you thought you were. I've been working in tech for a long time, so I've been watching a lot of development. Crypto has been really interesting with decentralized design. And about 2020, Nodar was actually building Zapper, and I was interested in helping out. started looking into DeFi more, and that was a really good introduction to that world. Whatever money I had left over, I started using in DeFi. And I don't know if you guys remember Pickle Finance, but all of those pickle jars were a really interesting product. I put a lot of money into that. And I lost about 70% of my crypto. That left a pretty sour taste in my mouth, so to speak. It was really annoying, and I got really frustrated with the fact that I have no idea what the smart contracts are doing with my money. So I started looking into that. I tried reading the code. I didn't understand Solidity right away. So I was interested in learning all of those pieces. I've been working in tech in a long time, but I haven't touched Solidity at all. And so I started kind of like picking up different pieces. Did Crypto Zombies, I believe, the game, which was the tutorial intro into Solidity. It was a lot of fun, and I started just picking up some pieces. And then as we came together a year and a half ago, that's when I actually spiked my interest and my skills in Solidity and Web3, etc. It's been a great journey, and I've been really interested in this space for a long time. But as Nodar mentioned, he brought us all together, and actually, we had a really good product to work on. We had a goal, and that's exactly the best place for you to like learn when you have really good focus. Yeah, and my previous kind of experience, I've been in a lot of other companies. The latest one was Betterment, which I led the anti-fraud department. So I've been interested in like security, fraud, finance, more like anti-fraud. Sorry, let me explain to correct myself there. But this world of crypto kind of has a lot of that overlap, and I think it's like a perfect time for us to get in and build together.
Hey, my name is Eldari. My position at DeFrag is community manager and lead research. I entered the crypto space in 2017 as well. Major thank you to my brother Nodar. I actually remember when he took apart one of our PCs and started building a rig to mine Ethereum, and I was like, dude, what the hell are you doing? What is this? And I was kind of intrigued from then on. I kind of watched him develop Zapper and invent Zaps. So kind of like was on the side watching him build his $1 billion protocol along with Suhail, who's also on this call. He's one of the listeners. But yeah, just from getting introduced to crypto in 2017, my next venture was getting exposed to DeFi Summer. That's when I was kind of reading a bunch of different white papers. I wasn't really putting out tutorials like Nodar, but I was definitely, taking my time and studying the space. I wasn't really too familiar with like the finance world. That was kind of my first hands-on experience with it. So definitely did a lot of studying and reading since 2017, and got an opportunity. Thanks to Nodar, Igor, and Alex to be a part of DeFrag. And just trying my best to contribute and present whatever research I find, whatever collections I feel like would be great on our protocol, and have been taking it from there. Been taking care of our socials, Discord, Twitter, sometimes Telegram. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
All right, there we have it. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Noda. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Dari, for your intro and giving everyone context of your story, however brief that was. But that is cool. We will be getting into a lot of details much later. So yesterday we did have Igor with us for the Board Dev Chat Club. Today, however, for the most part, as well as like, as much as the floor is open for any four of you to respond to any of the questions, and curiosity will be bringing forth. I am particularly curious on Nodar's perspective, right, and responses. So most of my questions will be directly directed to you at first, and then anyone else can pick them up as it progresses. I hope that is cool. Yeah.
Okay, I'm on the spot.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. Okay. Cool. So real quick, just to get things out of the way, what exactly is DeFrag, right? So what is DeFragDAO? And I suppose the next question obviously would be like, so why did you build this?
DeFragDAO is a lending protocol on Arbitrum for NFT assets. So what users can do is come in with their NFT assets on Arbitrum. Currently, it's available for small brains and Genesis Legions. Deposit them as collateral and instantly draw USDC as a loan. They can repay this USDC loan at any time to withdraw back their collateralized NFTs. Now, the biggest reason we decided to build the DeFrag is because, like I kind of mentioned during my intro, we saw a huge kind of missing void in the space. So just like in the early days of DeFi, as maybe some of you remember, most people, like, they weren't selling their ETH, right? They were using it as collateral on Maker, right? Which was first, and literally getting like a 0% loans, right? Like, it was like free money in the beginning. So once NFTs popped off, and once everyone kind of ended up having these pretty significant NFT portfolios in their wallets, the very first thing the OG started thinking about is, okay, how can I increase the capital efficiency, right, that I currently have? And the best way to do that is, of course, use your NFT assets as collateral to try to get even more liquidity and use it somewhere else, or perhaps within the same ecosystem. So yeah, this is where kind of we decided to we started looking around what currently people are doing within our ecosystem, right? And most of the NFT lending marketplaces are essentially set up as a peer-to-peer model. What does that mean? It means when you come in with your NFT asset and you deposit it as collateral, in order for you to get a loan from someone, you essentially have to wait for a counterparty to accept your offer. So each kind of NFT loan is set up manually with each kind of like, oh, how much interest am I going to pay? For how long is this loan for? What am I depositing? So these kinds of kind of items needed to be figured out before you initiate the loan. So what we set out to do is kind of remove all of that friction and create a peer-to-pool model, right? Whereas you can come in with your NFT asset and you don't have to wait for a counterparty to accept your loan terms. You could just come in and instantly draw USDC. And the way we do that is by utilizing what's called put options. So essentially every borrower that comes in and starts to borrow, they're required to essentially purchase an insurance for their NFT collateral. That NFT insurance collateral that's getting paid out to the underwriters is what's considered cost of borrowing within our system. So yeah, essentially the number one reason is kind of like, you're able to come in and instantly take out the USDC loan without waiting for a counterparty to accept your loan term.
Yeah, just a small thing. Just so if anybody's listening as a user, you do not need to purchase any insurance. It's very simple. You just deposit an NFT, you borrow USDC, and you repay any time. And Nodar's describing like the mechanics of how the APR is calculated, which is based on the Black-Scholes model, and it's traditionally known as a put option for those TradFi heads that are interested in learning.
All right, sweet, awesome. Thank you for that. You quite literally answered some of the other questions I had, but we'll go into that much later on. So I suppose my next question is, where exactly is the liquidity for the put option coming from, right? Is this something that is backed up by the DeFrag team? Because I assume that if there isn't an actual quote unquote buyer standing by to, sort of provide liquidity for these NFTs that are being used to lend, capital, how exactly then does this mechanics work?
Yeah, exactly. So on the other side of this is a USDC pool. So just a smart contract that's filled with USDC. And this USDC, we currently have it raised from all the previous kind of NFT mints of our own NFT that we had, Metamatician. So we had a sale of our own NFT called Metamatician last year.
Yeah.
And now all the proceeds from that sale have been injected essentially into this underwriting pool with USDC. So essentially, every time a borrower comes in, exactly like you said, withdraws the loan, the same USDC is now locked away for the put option, for the underwriting of the put option. And now, in case the liquidation does happen, that USDC is readily available to purchase the NFT that has been collateralized and now liquidated. So there's never this effect of cascading liquidation effects where each liquidation affects the next liquidation because the price gets dumped with each liquidation. So
Right. So
yeah,
okay. Don't go into a lot more details on liquidation. I will ask a specific question
yeah,
because we're
yeah,
about to
yeah.
go into
Sorry.
that. Yeah. No. That's
It
cool.
just kind of goes hand in hand. But yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
essentially for now,
Exactly.
the underwriting liquidity is limited to the amount that we raised from the sale of these mathematicians, which I
Mm,
believe was around 350,000. You will correct
mm,
me if I'm wrong. And that once this
Yep.
initial liquidity runs out, we can open up the floor for additional underwriters to come in and deposit the USDC. So our goal with this initial underwriting liquidity is to prove to the future underwriters that this is a worthwhile kind of endeavor, them
mm,
depositing USDC into
mm.
underwriting pools for each NFT.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Makes.
you were gonna say something. I kind of cut you off.
No, I just said, yep. Right now it's in ETH. Some is in USDC and some is in ETH for the liquidity pool.
Cool. Cool. Okay, so yes, I was also going to ask like what then happens when the entire 350K is like, locked up and essentially from a quote unquote problem of scale, because again, that is like hopefully the goal to have a lot more, you could say traffic coming into the system. And then okay. So what happens when these instant peer-to-pool models have been, what would you call it, exhausted, and you're now left with a lot more demand than you can possibly handle?
Yeah, like I said, kind of once that pool starts running out, I
Mm-hmm.
think we'll have a really good enough data to now open up the floor for additional underwriters, and
Mm-hmm.
we hope there will be a good enough incentive for them to come in and deposit their USDC, because now
Right.
we have sort of essentially a proven model where you can deposit the USDC and get, you know, I don't want to lie about the average now, but whatever the average APR is going to be, which is going to be a lot higher if you were depositing, into like other, I guess,
Right.
stable coined savings accounts, quote unquote, on DeFi. So yeah, like that's why I said, like essentially our goal with this initial launch is to definitely prove to now the new underwriters that this is a worthwhile endeavor, depositing the USDC into underwriting pools.
All right, awesome. Makes sense. So you guys essentially have like your took out money from your pocket and then have that to prove this proof of concept as to the fact that this works and this isn't like, anything for a short period of time. We're here for the long run and it actually does work. Awesome, sounds good. So walk me through or how exactly does like floor price volatility, how is it mitigated? Because again, if we're talking about NFTs, we're talking about a relative inconsistency with price, right? So how then is this like mitigated with an asset being used to borrow stable coins, and then how at what point does the asset loses its value, and then at what point is it liquidated? So I suppose you can then answer that question, and then we can dive into liquidation because I think it's one and the same.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Igor, let me know when you want to jump in around this. But yeah, essentially for pricing to start off, so we update our pricing once a day for all three of our current collections, which
Mm,
is the small brain regulars, the common Genesis legions, and the special Genesis legions.
mm,
So we've been working with the DeFragDAO team to set up a pricing oracle where it connects to the Trove marketplace, and every time a sale happens, it updates our central NFT pricing oracle, which tracks
mm,
kind of the prices, the floor prices of all these collections. But after kind of we've seen some manipulation in the market, and we decided to, for the time being, to have manual daily updates. So what that means is we're manually updating all three of these floor prices and essentially watching the marketplace activities that happen during the day and updating the floor price based on the average magic price times the USD price of magic for that day. And that
mm,
becomes now the collateral value average price in USD terms for that specific collection for that day. And now
mm.
each day as that price changes, of course, all the loans within that collection get updated.
No, that was great. So we wanted to do admin updates for two reasons. One is that it prevents wash trading, which we saw on Trove, where a legion was sold for $1 back and forth, and we instantly caught it because we're manually looking at the screen every day, and we moved away from that model. And there will be some people in the community that are more utopian and want a fully decentralized system, but we think that it's worthwhile making sure that the security for our users, for the rest of the users, are prioritized over like instant utopia of like full decentralization. So there is a bit of the team, trust in the team to do the right thing, and we hope we have earned that trust.
All right, awesome, cool.
Now to flow into the liquidations, right? So say for example, like I said, the prices get updated every day, and liquidation occurs once your loan to value ratio, right, is over 83.33%. So in other words, if you say you borrow $833, right, and the value of your NFT is around $1,000, right? So that would be like your liquidation threshold. So if the price of NFT drops even a little bit below that $1,000, you're now considered at risk of liquidation. So what happens on our system in the back end, right? If we update the price, and based on your borrowed amount, you are over the liquidation threshold, then we essentially set your loan to get liquidated the next time we do an update. So now in 24 hours, when we do an update and you're still within that liquidation zone, that's when you get liquidated. So you essentially have the 24 hours to top up your loan, whether it's with more collateral or by paying back some of the debt.
Okay, cool. I was exactly going to ask that. So, like, what happens then if I do not have the entire, collateral I borrowed, the entire loan I borrowed, and I just want to offset my liquidation to buy myself more time, essentially. And obviously, this is by depositing more USDC. Is that correct?
Exactly. You could pay back some of the USDC, therefore lowering your borrow amount, therefore lowering your LTV ratio, bringing it below liquidation.
All right, Igor, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just conversely, I think what you're saying, if you want to improve your health, and Nodar mentioned this, if you want to improve your health scores and your loan metrics, you can add more collateral of the same collection rarity. And much like in traditional like Aave vaults, if you add more collateral, it improves your loan stats and you prevent yourself from getting liquidated. We also, one thing to be very mindful, and we're very mindful of this, one thing to say about how we build features, and just something that we try to keep deep inside our DNA. We try to build this platform with risk management at top of mind. And what I mean by that, like for instance, we have 50% max LTV borrow. So the most you can borrow on a $1,000 price small is $500. There are our model, the Black-Scholes model that's used to price the APR, incentivizes healthier LTV borrowing. So the lower LTVs pay lower APRs. And the higher the degen activity, the one that gets close to that 50% LTV threshold, they end up paying, could be upwards of 60, 70% APR. So we're trying to build a system that really is sensitive to risk, not just for the fact that we want to keep our protocol healthy, but we also want to do right by the community and users and make sure that we provide a platform that allows them to take opportunities in the market, but with risk management in mind.
All right, awesome. Okay, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. So, while Noda was talking about liquidation and explaining everything in between, I remember, I think it was sometime last year or 2 years ago, I used a particular token to borrow some USDC or USDT from Binance. So now, obviously, Binance is a centralized exchange, and I was using an actual token as opposed to an asset like an NFT. So one of the interesting things with using a centralized exchange or with using Binance at the time was things like notifications and prompts as to when and if my asset is getting really close to its liquidation, right? So like maybe when the LTV is going above 83, 85, I'm constantly being notified because like the app runs on my phone, and then I can always like, in case the market is just really volatile, I can always just go back and maybe add more collateral or pay some of the loans just so I do not get liquidated. So how can something like that be mitigated in DeFrag, for example, right? Because it's a decentralized protocol. I am assuming that probably you aren't taking email addresses. If you are, then maybe perhaps that's one of the ways. But the question is, how is that a problem you're looking to solve? And if yes, how?
What I was going to say is that we've looked into some, current kind of decentralized solutions, quote unquote. So something like the ENS notifications.
Mm-hmm.
So like yeah, like it's definitely not on our immediate to-do list, but it's something we definitely want to implement once something is there that could be like, you know, that's viable to implement essentially, right?
Mm.
But yeah, it's definitely an issue we see throughout the space, of course, throughout the space, especially when you're building, you know, a smart contract, but protocol like ours, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it is one of those things where you kind of expect your early users to do this on their own,
Right.
but if you want to attract the masses, right, like more like retail users, actually,
Mm.
you would need to build out these notifications for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just
Yeah.
add a little bit to that. There is there are tools out there like DeFi Saver, which we have looked at to see how users can automate topping up their vault given certain conditions. That's one thing. The other thing is, and I think Nodar is alluding to this, is for those that perhaps want to opt in to giving us some more of their information. You know, we don't require anyone. We don't need anyone to give us any additional information
Mm-hmm.
besides our wallet address. But if users want that feature, we might do some testing around that to
Mm.
bring the convenience to the user to manage their positions. You know, we're not limiting ourselves to the confines of what the industry deems like responsible in terms of like privacy or not. Like we're going to let the
Right.
user decide that. If the user wants convenience to secure their
Mm-hmm.
vaults
Exactly.
by
Mm-hmm.
getting alerts, why not? You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's their prerogative.
Yeah, it makes sense. It does make sense that it isn't like set in stone with your response to that because, you know, again, someone like myself or pretty much anyone would find it relatively helpful to have some form. Or well, like Nodar pointed out, you know, the retail investors will find it really helpful. I dare say, to have some form of a prompt that reminds them right at the point to which their assets or their liquidation is getting close to being liquidated. So yes, looking forward to some updates on that as to how you know that is being approached and solved, and I'm pretty sure that will be very well received. So we also see that there are a handful of NFTs, three, if I am correct. Are there like plans to increase this number in the future? And are there also like plans to possibly become cross-chain? I hinted a fairly similar question yesterday to Igor as to why Arbitrum was chosen as opposed to Polygon, but this is a slightly different twist as to are there plans to possibly, you know, be integrated with like maybe Polygon and the likes?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could tell you that we kind of started with not kind of deciding, oh, where should we build, but we first looked at, okay, who should we build for, right? Like which
Mm-hmm.
NFT collection should be our first collateral, and we kind of went
Right.
off of from that. And you know, we've been following the Treasure DAO community from very early on. We've seen that they are like hardcore builders, right? That always kept shipping even through the bear market, and that was
Mm-hmm.
a very
Mm-hmm.
good sign for us. So we decided to essentially attach ourselves to them, and you know, it was in the beginning kind of a bet on them, and at the same time as us, but and at the same time as Arbitrum, right? And luckily for us, kind of like both Arbitrum and Treasure DAO obviously ended up coming ahead through the bear market, right? You could say we've seen the usage on Treasure DAO only keep increasing as
Mm-hmm.
everywhere else it was decreasing, which was another really super really good sign for us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like we've been working very closely with the team, and we our plans are like very short term wise to keep onboarding collections within Treasureverse and within Arbitrum. So like for example, within Treasureverse, we have like other collections like Tales of Valeria and Battlefly that we could onboard, and also within Arbitrum itself, it's things like GMX and GBC, which Igor has been in contact with to onboard. The community seems pretty excited to add on a sort of a financial feature like this to their NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that's our kind of like immediate short term plan is to expand within the Treasure DAO verse and Arbitrum to add on more collections.
Sweet. So we're looking to have a lot more collections from the Arbitrum universe.
Yeah, yeah, and as you could kind of tell, our big focus is not necessarily only just on PFP assets, but like we have a pretty big focus on playable NFTs. So NFTs you can utilize within games. And as we onboard these collections, we'll be working closely with the teams to see where it makes sense for us to add on that playability feature for already collateralized assets. So you could improve your capital efficiency even more by using your NFT in game and being able to use it as collateral to get more liquidity.
Interesting. So you're saying an asset that has already been used as a collateral can still be used in game and can still yield capital that could potentially offset the
Exactly.
collateral.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Interesting. That should be a lot of fun for the DeFragDAO community. Cool. All right. So cross-chain plans. Any of that? Possibly, maybe yes, or just not near term.
Well, I would say not near term, but anything is possible. So like, it's really like we want to kind of eventually even maybe create a system where you could kind of use a blueprint to launch your own underwriting pool for whatever collection that you need. So kind of like being for the beginning, we are kind of like in charge of doing that, right? Onboarding new collections, but eventually we want to create like a blueprint for anyone to be able to do that on their own. So yeah, like, but in terms of cross chains, to answer your specific questions, like maybe Igor, if you want to add something on, but like again, like for now we're staying on Arbitrum, but definitely keeping our eye open in case anything pops up that our users are asking for on other chains.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have plans of expansion. It's all just a matter of timing and focus. And just to give you some perspective, we launched just 3 days ago, and we already have 340,000 of TVL and 154 NFTs barred against. So to our surprise, people have been using the platform a lot more frequently than we anticipated. So we want to make sure that, and what we want to do is we want to give people the best barring experience they could possibly get. And that requires us to design products in the space that are really, really easy to use. And it's not an easy task. So we want to make sure we put our focus on the right things and expand, as Nodar said, through the Arbitrum network first, because there's a lot of things that we still have left to do here, specifically around DeFragDAO. We love the community. We have a handful of features. Nodar mentioned this, playable assets or playable vaults, as we call them, allowing yield generation and collateralization on the asset. But we also have a couple other features, such as flash buying. In other words, if a user comes onto DeFragDAO to Trove Marketplace specifically, and they only have 80% of the capital to buy a particular NFT, we can serve as the flash buy feature that helps them get the NFT and opens up a loan with us for the difference of that $200. So there are a couple of features that we want to explore that we think could bring deep value to DeFragDAO and the Arbitrum ecosystem. And then, of course, we're going to keep an eye out for other communities on other chains.
All right, sweet. Sounds good. So that is a lot more depth before width. Can you, just for the sake of more context and depth, explain how that works? So just, I think we have a decent idea of how the peer-to-pool model works, which is essentially the instant availability of liquidity without having to wait for a different, buyer to come and quote unquote purchase these NFTs. But explain to us how the Black Souls models work exactly.
Yeah. So Igor, did you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I just want to run through it quickly, then you could touch it up. So the peer-to-pool and the Black Scholes model are two separate things. So what I mean by that is we could have had a peer-to-pool model with a different, more probabilistic money market style of calculating the APR.
Right.
So those are two separate things, peer-to-pool and the Black Scholes calculation of the APR. Peer-to-pool is great because it allows for frictionless borrowing. The user does not have to wait for another party to come and accept terms, and they get instant liquidity. And I just snapped my fingers. Hopefully everybody heard that.
Yeah.
But so that's one thing. For the Black Scholes model, how that works is we use it to price the rate which the borrowers pay. And what we've done, and this is a huge shout out to Pods Finance, Rob and Bobby, who are close friends now, and then we've been chatting with them. They've helped tremendously in the work that they've done to get the Black Scholes model on chain. And if you look at our contract, specifically the premium pricer, for anybody interested, we have the Black-Scholes model deployed on, and it looks like there's a lot of prices that are plotted. So and for every derivative asset, for instance, like NFT or anything else, you have to put in a certain input, and those inputs include things like the current price of the asset, which the floor price. Then you have to put in the strike price, which is something like what the user borrows. You have to put in the volatility, which is a number that's set by us as a core team for the time being until we can automate that part of it. It's set at 225% implied volatility. And you set all these parameters, and you can see them on the contract. And once you set those parameters, you plug them in, it gives you back a premium amount. And we calculated this on a monthly premium basis and divided by 30. So that way we have a daily fee that is charged to the end borrower or user based on how much they borrowed or how much risk they took on. I could dive into
Please do. Can you okay, let's leave that to Nodar. So Nodar, do you want to do us a favor and just like dive a bit deeper into that?
So Igor, you left off on
so I guess if you could give us a sense of where you want us to dive a little bit deeper in terms of the Black-Scholes model based on what I said.
So the last thing you said was essentially calculates how, based off of the risk the user takes, and a couple other things. That is how certain thing is calculated. So, okay, Igor, if you don't mind, like going over that again, and then we can just pick off of it.
Sure. Yeah. So let me try to summarize it. In short, the Black-Scholes model is used to calculate the APR. The Black-Scholes model used in TradFi to price out options to determine risk. The Pods finance team did a lot of work to get that Black-Scholes model, the calculation and the code on chain. We've collaborated with them and they've helped us out so we can deploy Black-Scholes model on chain and use it for our protocol, which is DeFrag. So there's a contract called the premium pricer, which utilizes the Black-Scholes model, and it takes certain inputs. So the function takes certain inputs such as volatility, spot price, current asset price, borrowed amount, and a couple of different parameters. And those parameters are filled in the borrower. So when the borrower comes onto a platform, when they enter the borrow amount, it gets translated to being the strike price for the Black-Scholes model. So in essence, when they're coming in, they're utilizing the Black-Scholes model to give them back the APR that they pay to take the loan against their collateral. And it's fairly technical, but really in short, we believe it's a better model to price to give you an APR to price out risk.
All right. Okay, so Nodar, do you want to take it from there?
I was just gonna kind of similarly walk through maybe a simple example. So like say a borrower comes in with $1,000 NFT, say like a small brain, right? And they request a $300 loan, right? So now what happens in the background, right? Like, because as the user, everything is abstracted away. They don't have to know anything about like put options or anything like that, right? They're just putting in $1,000 NFT and they're saying, hey, I want to borrow 300. So in the background, in the same transaction, what happens is $300 from the underwriting pool, right, gets sent to the user. The $1,000 NFT gets put into essentially gets locked away, right? And $300 from the underwriting pool is getting locked away for in case a liquidation happens. And now this $300 and $1,000 become, just like Igor said, kind of the inputs to calculate the put option premium that this user is supposed to pay in order to withdraw this $300 loan. So the higher essentially this user gets to $500, the higher of the fee they'll pay. And now this fee is calculated based on a 30-day premium and then divided by 30. So you're essentially prepaying your daily interest as you're withdrawing the loan, right? So at $300, I forgot Igor exactly, but the annual percentage I think is something like 7 or 10%, right, Igor?
Yeah, it sounds correct.
Yeah, and so essentially, what you're gonna pay for a day for that $300 loan is gonna be something like 62 cents, right?
Mm,
So not every day you're gonna be paying the 62 cents unless something changes, like unless you
mm,
borrow more, right,
mm.
or unless the price of the collateral goes down. And
Right.
now this curve for how kind of how close you get to the $500 and how steeply your interest rate increases, it really gets derived from the put option calculation with the Black-Scholes model, right? So
Mm,
yeah, it is not just your basic linear kind of like supply demand model, right? As is typical with with other lending protocols, where
mm-hmm.
it kind of like strictly depends on how much is kind of like utilized from the available liquidity, right, by the borrowers. Here, it's actually the curve gets way steeper the closer you get to the $500. So as I
Right.
mentioned, at $300, you're only paying 7%. At $500, you're paying like over 30%, I believe it
Mm.
is, right? So yeah, it's definitely something that's kind of unique that we introduced. I don't think any other lending protocols use this kind of model to calculate interest. But yeah, just to kind of dive in a little bit deeper.
Sweet. So then, I mean, so this is something DeFrag uses. Do you think it is what would you call it, a superior method to calculate APR? And if so,
I don't
would you
think
then,
it's more like it's not about superior or
right,
inferior. It's all about like it's the right thing for us because we're the type of asset
gotcha,
we're using, which is an NFT asset, which is really
right,
volatile. And most of the calculation from this Black-Scholes model really
mm-hmm.
depends on the volatility input, which
Right,
actually DeFragDAO votes in. So like each NFT collection will have a different volatility. So that volatility percentage, that input, will drastically change the interest rate that each collection borrowers will be paying.
okay, okay, okay,
So yeah,
makes
again,
sense.
it's not about superior. It's about like we felt like it
What
was the
works?
right model for us to use that works for us.
Yeah, okay, 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 cool. Sounds good. I thought it was like, again, it was some form of a novel approach that was particularly, maybe superior, quote unquote. But
Well,
from
it can be applicable because if you think about it, what we've done is we've created the model
mm-hmm,
that is more tailor specific to really high risk assets and
mm-hmm,
illiquid assets. And as these assets evolve in this nascent industry, whether it's NFTs or other assets that have similar properties, this model can traverse those different assets and be applied. And that's kind of the benefit of these Lego blocks in programmable money in
mm.
DeFi, and that we can apply these models to other areas and potentially see enormous value from that as well.
All right, cool. So essentially, it does no harm to essentially use the Black-Scholes models for pretty much anything, quote unquote, besides NFTs at this point in time for any protocol that is interested. That is,
Yeah, I mean, it's still experimental, but
yeah.
of course, I mean, it's definitely when you're building cutting edge stuff, you're kind of learning as you go, and you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to stay diligent and really listen into what's working and what's not working.
All right, awesome, cool. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, we are rounding up and just coming to the end of today's Web3 One is One session. I do have a couple like rounding question on closing thoughts that I would like to hear from every single one of you. So Igor, Nodar, Alex, and Eldari. So these are like closing thoughts, right? So two questions. One is, what are one of the things that excites you the most about DeFrag? What is like your particular favorite feature? Maybe if you worked on the smart contract, it's like, yo, this excites me. If it's possibly the Black-Scholes model, if it's the entire protocol. Okay, no, not the entire protocol. That's too much of a broad response. Pick one thing and let us know what that is. And what are your projections for like, well, maybe not projections, things you look forward to seeing here in crypto between now and the next 2 years?
Yeah, so I could take a stab at this first. So, like, right now we're at a point where what I really look forward to in the short term playing around with is essentially creating, you could say, like, new financial instruments, even utilizing DeFrag as one of the Lego pieces. So, as I've actually spoken about this to Sahil, who's on this call, as my brother mentioned. So, like, it's something like creating the Flash Borrow Zap, right? So, it's essentially combining the actions from DeFrag and from Aave flash loans to essentially help user get from point A to point B in the easiest way, right? In one click. So I feel like we're going to see a lot of use cases utilizing DeFrag as one of the Lego pieces.
Sweet. Thank you for that, Igor. Thank you for that, Nodar. Pardon me. Igor, what are yours?
Yeah, the part that I'm most proud of and the part that I'm most excited about in general with DeFrag building various different financial features, how not to underestimate, and I really should overstate how easy it is to take out a loan. I mean, we really focused on usability. You deposit an NFT, borrow USDC, and you repay anytime. There are a lot of other, and everybody, look, the pie's big enough and everybody's kind of tackling their own markets in their own ways. But as a general statement, I think in crypto, what a lot of times, there are a lot of false positives. There's like a lot of tokenomics involved and like the core usage of what the user just wants to do, which is quickly and easily have a wonderful borrowing experience. And I think we really accomplished that with what we've built. And I'm really proud of the fact that you could just explain it in a 1, 2, 3 model, and I'll say it over and over again. You deposit NFT, borrow USDC, repay anytime. And I'm really proud of that. So, and we intend to build any product related to DeFrag in the same manner.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you for that, Igor. All right, Alex, you and Eldari were practically, on the background for the most part of the session. But again, what excites you the most about DeFrag?
Yeah, I mean, from the technical standpoint, this is one of the most exciting things I worked on in my life. I definitely love everything that we've built. I'm really proud of everything. New features that are going to be coming out this year are also extremely complex in terms of technical standpoint, but I'm also really, really excited as a CTO and being in charge of like product execution here, is to grow our team. We have really big goals for this year, not only from the feature execution, but also in terms of growing DeFrag as a company. And I think this year we're going to be hiring a lot of great folks. We have a lot of stuff that we need to build out, and we need the support from the community. And we also want people, really, really smart, great individuals to come and work with us. I'm also really proud to build this company as a place where people are excited to work with us. Like people want to come in and work with us. That's what I'm really excited about putting together this year.
Awesome. All right, sweet.
Yeah, and no, great stuff, guys. I guess if I can add anything, what excites me is just the beauty of DeFi, and just going back to what Igor said in regards to the ease of usability with our protocol. That's to me what's so beautiful about DeFi. It makes it so easy. Like you don't need to have a background check. You could just come in, deposit your NFT, withdraw your loan, and repay it at any time. And it's the seamlessness of it is what excites me. And because we've started with the Treasureverse ecosystem and a few collections, and I'm just excited to build it for other ecosystem and collections and bring the power of DeFi to those ecosystems.
Awesome with you on that one. Bringing the power of DeFi to all of these ecosystems is exciting. Again, so that practically has been it for today. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Nodar. Thank you, Alex and Eldari, for joining us today. Thank you for everyone in the audience who had just tuned in and just listened to us go over the really cool tech being built by the DeFrag team. So this has been Web 3.1 by us over at the DAP Place. What we do typically is we bring on teams that are building really, really cool stuff, and we have them coming on our Discord and on Twitter and on Telegram to sort of answer these questions for the community, for whoever is curious, for people who are interested in learning what these tools and these protocols and what these people are doing. So we essentially bring these people on board. We ask these questions and we sort of provide clarity like we have done with, you could say, the Black-Scholes model. But I'm sure if anyone needs more clarity, please feel free to reach out to Igor or Nodar or Alex or Eldari or anyone in the DeFrag team, and they'll be more than happy to help you out. Or if you have any suggestions, please feel free to reach out to them. My name is Yinka from the DAP list. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.